From buzzing bees to terrific termites, the planet's packed with billions of insects, and if we're not careful, they won't be around for much longer.
No, biologist and bug expert Dave Goulson says dozens of species are going extinct every day, and if they all go, then we won't survive for very much long after that.
Dave's got this, very striking book, beautifully embossed book called Silent Earth, Averting the Insect Apocalypse. And you say, basically, Dave, that we are massacring insects on a horrific scale, you say.
Yeah, it's really sad. There's very clear evidence that insect populations are plummeting around the world. So, for example, our butterfly populations are down by about 50% since the 1970s.
50%?
So when I was a kid running around with a butterfly net, there were twice as many as there are today.
That's true, yeah. What is the difference? Why should we care about that?
Insects make up the bulk of life on Earth. There's more than 1 million known species, more than 2/3 of all the species we know of.
What's that you've got there, by the way?
This is a rather wonderful Australian stick insect. And so they're food for a huge number of birds, bats, lizards, frogs and toads, freshwater fish. And then they're involved in all sorts of ecological processes that are really important. So, for example, they control crop pests, they recycle dung and dead bodies and dead trees and leaves and all sorts of things.
We have dung beetles, don't you? That's their
Lots
job.
of species of dung beetles.
Yeah.
And of course, they're pollinators, which is perhaps the thing that people recognise most that insects do.
I'm looking at what's to your left there and what looks like the biggest worm I've ever seen. Are the insects we're seeing here, can these be found in Britain?
No, none of these are British, sadly. I wish they were. In fact, these are imposters. These are giant millipedes from Africa. So millipedes are technically not insects. Insects have 6 legs. But they're related, so we kind of let this one slip. We've got a beautiful praying mantis over to the left there. Gorgeous creatures.
Hang on, we're just waiting to get a nice close-up there. There we are.
Pretending to be a kind of dried leaf.
Why are they disappearing, though, Dave? What are we doing, the human race?
Yeah, I mean, it's all down to us, unfortunately. You know, insects have been around for 400 million years and have done pretty well up till now. But it's all the usual suspects. It's habitat loss, effects of pesticides, climate change is starting to kick in, light pollution has an impact on nocturnal insects like moths, and then there's probably a whole bunch of other lesser factors as well.
And do you believe if they go, we'll not be far behind them?
Well, certainly our lives would be much, much harder. I mean, just in terms of pollination, 3/4 of all the crops we grow in the world need insect pollinators, everything from apples and blueberries and strawberries to tomatoes, chili peppers, even coffee and chocolate depend upon insect pollinators. So life would be pretty dire without them. And the horrible truth is lots of us would starve.
Your book is really a plea, actually, for people to care about insects. How can you change people's minds? What can you get people to do that may just make a difference?
Yeah, because I think we look, and already I've got cockroaches here, and immediately I see a cockroach, it makes me go, ugh. I think of dirtiness and, you know, that makes my skin crawl seeing a cockroach. I don't go, oh, look, isn't he beautiful?
Most of these, I mean, the insects we've got here, none of them are pests in any way. These cockroaches are really sweet, actually. These, next to Eamon, we've got some Madagascan hissing cockroaches. They live in the rainforest. They're really important decomposers. They're no threat to anybody.
And they do hiss, do they?
They do, but it's just a warning to please leave me alone.
Yeah.
Not terribly convincing.
I mean, I hate to say it, but a natural reaction from many people would be to stamp on something like that.
I know, it makes me... So my mission in life, if you like, is to try and persuade people to love insects. And I know it's an uphill task a lot of the time. But actually, they're amazing creatures. They're so diverse. You know, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more than 1 million species.
Yeah.
What have we got here? The yellow and black ones.
These are little fruit beetles. They come in a range of colours. You can see them all munching away on the banana there.
Banana,
yeah.
We started the programme and Ruth was saying that a drive in the country when we were both younger would have resulted in insects splattered all over the front of the car on the windscreen. Now, when she raised the subject, I thought, yeah, you don't see that as often.
You don't,
It doesn't
we
really...
just have to stop the car
Yeah,
sometimes and clean the windscreen.
I remember exactly the same thing, and I think most people who are old enough do remember that time. I'm not sure exactly when it ended, but I've got vivid childhood memories of having to scrub the windscreen.
So that's a sign there are fewer...
Absolutely. And I mean, literally, I drove all day a few days ago on a beautiful July sunny day, and there wasn't one splat on the windscreen.
So what can we do? So people watching today and saying, OK, what can I do? Can I encourage them into the garden? Or do you say, look, if you see one, don't stamp on it unless it's going to hurt you or something?
Yeah, well, the nice thing here is that actually there's loads people can do. You know, a lot of these environmental issues are a bit... You sort of feel helpless about the rainforests or whatever, but insects live all around us, and they haven't. Most of them haven't yet gone extinct, and they could recover really quickly if we looked after them. So the back quarter of the book is all about what we can do. And one of the most obvious things is we can make our gardens more insect friendly. You know, plant some bee-friendly flowers, don't mow the lawn too often, don't use any
This is called rewilding, isn't it?
Rewild your garden,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a really exciting movement. You know, there are about 22 million private gardens in the UK. Just imagine if most of those were turned over to nature. They cover an area of, it's about 400,000 hectares. It's a bigger area than all of our nature reserves. So, I mean, my garden is full of wildflowers, it's full of bees and butterflies and grasshoppers.
And you can get those
It's
insect
beautiful.
kind of house things, can't you?
Bug
You hang
hotels,
bug
yeah, the bee
hotels.
hotels work really well.
Yeah.
They provide homes for little solitary bees, which are great pollinators.
And you are a
of fruit trees.
bumblebee you specialise
I
in
do.
bumblebees.
I've spent the last 30 or so years studying.
And why do you love them
bumblebees.
so much? Why are they so
They're
important?
gorgeous. They're very lovable, furry, colourful creatures, slightly clumsy, and super important as pollinators of huge numbers of wildflowers and of lots of our crops.
But you yourself, you're not immune from seeing a nuisance factor associated with insects. So there was this story you were telling me about in your garden shed, a wasp nest. And your philosophy towards that was what?
To leave it well alone and just let them get on with their lives. And they didn't bother me in the slightest. They were in the apex of the shed, just above my head every time I went in to get a tool out or whatever. But actually, they don't want to sting. They're happily going about their own business. And it's the same with most insects. You know, we just need to try and be a bit more tolerant. They've got as much right to be here as we have, in my
Leave
view.
them alone, they'll leave you alone.
Exactly.
Sort
But
of
they're
attitude
important.
with
We've got to remember how important they are.
Yeah.
Super important.
Very, very important. So there it is. Dave's put it all in this book, Silent Earth, Averting the Insect Apocalypse, OK? Very good, Dave. Thank you very much indeed. And, yeah, good luck with what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do something, if you're rewilding your garden, for instance, Ruthie wants to rewild our garden and bits of it, and I was always somebody who was into lawns and,
Neat.
you know,
You like everything
neatness
neat.
and hedge and order and things.
I like a bit
but
more
there's
wild.
there's the purpose to what you're trying to do.
And I've got
which is
lots
good.
of bee-friendly flowers. And it's lovely watching them all.
Good, good.